My name's Mark Devlin. I'm a radio and club DJ from the UK, have been for the last 25 years. I've also been a music journalist, I've written for various magazines, and I'm currently writing a book called Musical Truth, which I'm hoping to bring out in the early part of 2016. So for many years I was a DJ, fortunate enough to travel to lots of different countries, played all over the UK, large clubs, bars, all sorts, and just kind of did everything that was expected of you as a DJ. Did radio shows as well. Things reached a point in 2010 where I'd been doing a lot of reading and a lot of reflecting on the big questions in life. Who are we? What are we doing here? What is this place anyway? Those questions have always been things that have played on my mind, and I've always reflected on them. But prior to that point, I didn't have any kind of answers to these questions. And 2010 was the culmination of, a number of years of researching various authors. Very significantly, the books of David Icke, but also Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods was a big one for me, and some other books that my dad put me onto, Eric von Daniken and such, because my dad has always been a deep thinking sort of guy. And I came to understand at this point in September 2010 that the world is nothing like we're told it is. And that set me off on a very different path to the one I'd been on before. So for the past 5 years, I've been quite heavily researching all kinds of subjects related to conspiracy, truth, spirituality, esoteric metaphysical concepts. And I've also looked into how that relates to the music industry. I'm talking about the corporate mainstream music industry. Not every aspect of it, but the very upper levels of it. And there are many connections between these different subject areas when you really get into it. And this has been a great interest of mine over the last 5 years. And it's formed the foundation of what the book is going to be, Musical Truth. It's going to be about 200,000 words, so it's not exactly a pamphlet. It's more of a doorstop. And I'm looking forward to getting it out there. So for the past 5 years, I've been talking publicly about this stuff and going on radio programs and doing podcasts. And it's a little bit different to the way my life was before, I can tell you. Well, regarding lyrics, there is a very well-worn theory that the Beatles were actually a product of the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations in London, which is this organisation that is all about mind control and social engineering. And there's a theory that there was a guy linked to the Frankfurt School, which is a similar organisation to the Tavistock Institute, by the name of Theo Adorno. And it's said by this guy called John Coleman, who was a former British intelligence operative who became something of a whistleblower. It's said that Theo Adorno wrote many of the Beatles' early songs. I can't say whether that's the case or not. I can't prove it either way, but it is a theory. Then when it comes to lyrics, you have certain artists who have talked about channeling their lyrics from out in the ether, from somewhere out there. And they've talked publicly in interviews about not really knowing where these lyrics come from. One of them is Elton John, who's talked about channeling this stuff, and he writes in what's called witch language. David Bowie is another one, and Bowie has talked about how he used to get newspapers and cut up newspaper headlines and then reassemble them, and whatever way the words came out would form the lyrics to his songs, which is an interesting way of putting a song together. And then you have Jimmy Page and Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin, who have talked about having channeled their famous song Stairway to Heaven. It just kind of came to them and they pulled it out of the universe somewhere. So you have to ask yourself the question, if you're open-minded enough to go into these subject areas, is there any truth to this? And could these lyrics be coming from other realms? And could these artists be being used as conduits, as outlets for this information? When it comes to lyrics, I think there's some interesting situations going on there. Then also you have something which I touched on in my talks, which is how the hip-hop genre in particular has been steered down a certain path during the last 25 years or so. And lyrics have been deliberately put into hip-hop songs that glorify certain lifestyles, such as gang banging and toting guns and drinking alcohol, having promiscuous sex, just living a destructive kind of lifestyle like that, in order to get the people listening to the music to emulate the kind of lifestyle that's being put out there by their heroes. So we can see with hip-hop, that's an entire genre that has been manipulated and steered according to the lyrical content that's gone into it. So lyrics have a big part to play in the way things pan out. Well, hip-hop is a genre that I've been involved with as a DJ, and it's one that I've studied a lot, and it's one that's quite close to my heart. And I'm very distressed by the way it's turned out and the way things have been manipulated from what it once was, this beautiful, meaningful art form and means of expression, into the corrupted, toxic, debased shadow of its former self that it is now. And I don't think that's by accident. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that it's not. There was a letter which came out from a former music industry executive in recent years who stated that he was part of a meeting that was called in Los Angeles in 1991, where the private prison industry had said that it wanted to work together with the corporate music industry, the big labels, to change the face of rap music and to get certain lyrical themes included in the music and to promote certain lifestyles and certain behaviours so that predominantly young black males who would be listening to this stuff would want to emulate the lifestyles of their hip-hop heroes. And I think it's pretty clear to see that that agenda has played out to the letter in terms of the sort of stuff that is now getting into hip-hop lyrics and the sort of consequences of that type of behaviour that we're seeing play out. You know, a few years ago, I would have denied that this was the case because I was a supporter of the genre to that degree. But now I've done the research and truth is truth and it is what it is, and I can see clearly that that's what's happened. There's also a spiritual, metaphysical component to hip-hop. There's a researcher by the name of Black Dot that has put out a book called Hip Hop Decoded, which people might want to check out, where he explores the idea that when hip-hop culture was born in the Bronx in New York in 1973, it was reigniting and evoking spiritual traditions that lie dormant in black people from when they'd been brought over from Africa, which went back to previous cultures and previous generations. And hip-hop was a modern expression of these ancestral traditions of black people. And it was spiritual in nature, and it was allowing these people to express themselves in this conscious, meaningful way. That would be another reason why the controllers would want to crush and subjugate and corrupt this genre, this art form. They don't want people awakening spiritual components within themselves. They want people degraded and held in base consciousness and absolutely in this 3D reality without exploring their true nature. And sadly, we can see how that agenda has played out within hip-hop. And that would be another one which has worked out entirely to plan. So people need to be aware of these things and people need to work towards turning it around. Until they do, nothing's going to change. But it can change if we want it enough. Predictive programming is where a real-world event, whether it's a genuine event the way we're told it happened, or whether it's some kind of hoax or false flag event, because they do these all the time, where some aspect of it is depicted in a work of popular culture which gets put out before it. So that could be a Hollywood movie, it could be a TV show, it could be a music video, a record sleeve, a cartoon, anything like that. Anything which is going to be viewed by large numbers of people. They're going to see the imagery that's being conveyed and they're going to absorb it into their subconscious mind. Later, this real world event, it might be 9/11, it might be the Germanwings plane crash, it might be any number of events we're told go on. When that event is presented to them in the news as a real-world event, there is some kind of familiarity with what they're seeing from the fact that their subconscious mind has absorbed the symbolism and the depictions of it. One reason why I feel they do it is to generate that familiarity so that when they present you with the official cover story, you're more likely to believe what you're being told because the familiarity is already there. You just don't know where it came from. That's how the subliminal mind works. Another reason why I feel they do it is I feel that they are trawling the energy force of large numbers of people in the general public that will have seen this video or movie, and they're making an energetic connection with the source of it. They don't realize they're doing it, but the energy is flowing, and they feel that this will help them to empower what they want to happen into physical manifestation. And then a third reason why predictive programming is done, which I think is the most relevant one, is it represents them hijacking our free will consciousness and our ability to consent to something, to say yes to it, or to object to it. They present a depiction of what they want to do in a very encoded, cryptic form, so that nobody could reasonably be expected to understand what's being conveyed. But as far as the controllers are concerned, that's all they need. They've told us in a deeply coded way what they want to do. When we don't object, when we say, we're not having this, you can't do this, they feel they've got the green light to go ahead and do it. And this alleviates the burden of karmic consequence on their part. I disagree with their viewpoint on it. I see it as sick and twisted and perverted and a very distorted way of looking at it. But all the evidence suggests that that is the way they view it. The key to everything and the key to fixing the situation that we find ourselves in all lies with the free will consciousness that we're all gifted and blessed to have. And it all lies within an understanding of natural law, the laws of morality that are inherent in the universe. And it lies with whether we choose to modify our thoughts, behaviours and actions in line with moral law, natural law, or whether we choose to go against it. And this is where the consenting comes in and the free will comes in. We all now have an opportunity to understand the methods of manipulation that are being used against us. That's what the internet is for. That's what research is for. The question is, do people care enough to take on the responsibility of doing the research and of modifying their behaviour and their thoughts in line with it? Or do they just not care enough to bring these things to an end? If vast numbers of people, it needs many, many more people on board than currently are. If vast numbers of people all align their thoughts and their consciousness together with a different type of scenario to the one we've currently got in mind, then that will manifest. It takes a certain quota of people to bring that about. But if everyone is on the same page and is wanting the same things and is withdrawing their consent for what's currently going on, things have to change. That's the way it works. That's the way it plays out. That's the way that natural law and consequentialism works hand in hand with the physical realm. So people owe it to themselves and their families, kids if they've got them, to take responsibility for what's happening. Who's going to look at the world the way it is and agree that this is a decent, pleasant, just, fair place to live in? We all know it's not. We all know it's corrupt. We all know it's immoral. It's broken. It's got to change. And the change can only come from us in large numbers. So how much do we want it? If you decide you want it, take on the responsibility of doing the research, understand the methods that are being used, and don't consent and contract with it in any way. Alternative ways of doing things are available if you choose to go down that route.